It was 1885, a full year before John Pemberton would stir a pot of caramel-colored syrup in Atlanta to create Coca-Cola. In the dusty, heat-oppressed town of Waco, Texas, the air inside Morrison's old corner drugstore didn't smell like dust. It smelled like opportunity. Charles Alderton, a young Brooklyn-born pharmacist, wasn't trying to build a global conglomerate. He was simply bored with the standard fruit flavors, lemon, strawberry, vanilla, that dominated the soda fountains of the post-Civil War South. Alderton was fascinated by the way the smells of the drugstore mingled in the air, a complex potpourri of fruit syrups, spices, and roots. He began experimenting with a new mixture, eventually settling on a proprietary blend of 23 flavors that no single palate could identify. This document tells the story of how that single mixture, initially sold for 5 cents a glass, evolved into a financial juggernaut with a market capitalization oscillating between $37 billion and $50 billion. It is a story not just of a drink, but of a brilliant, highly unusual business model that allowed a third-place soda to survive the cola wars by refusing to fight them, eventually merging with a coffee giant to create a beverage titan with annual revenues exceeding $14 billion. The initial monetization of Dr. Pepper was microscopic, but high velocity. In 1885, the currency of the American South was the nickel. Alderton's drink, initially called a Waco, became a local obsession. The first revenue stream was purely transactional, direct-to-consumer sales at the soda fountain. However, the owner of the drugstore, Wade Morrison, realized the scalability issues immediately. A soda fountain is a service business. It requires labor to mix and pour every unit. Revenue is capped by the number of seats at the counter. Morrison saw the demand for the Waco extended beyond the physical walls of his store. Other drugstore owners wanted the syrup to sell at their own fountains. The first pivot from service to manufacturing. The first true business model innovation occurred when Morrison began selling the syrup itself rather than the finished drink. This shifted the company from a B2C model to a B2B model. The margins on syrup are, and remain, astronomically high. Water and sugar are cheap. The value lies in the intellectual property, the formula. Early financials and investment. While records of the exact initial capitalization are scant, historical context suggests Morrison funded the initial expansion out of the drugstore's operating cash flow. The first true investors were not venture capitalists, but partners who brought operational expertise. In 1891, Morrison partnered with Robert S. Lazenby, a beverage chemist who brought scientific rigor to the production. They formed the Artesian Manufacturing and Bottling Company. The initial make-money strategy was simple. Low COGS, cost of goods sold, sugar, water, and flavor extracts. High markup, selling gallons of syrup to other fountains at a significant premium over the raw ingredient cost. Zero distribution cost. Initially, buyers came to them, or local wagons were used for short-haul delivery. By the turn of the century, this model had proven the product's market fit in Central Texas. The drink wasn't just a novelty, it was a habit. But to become a fortune, it had to leave Waco. The 1904 World's Fair, the viral moment. If the 1990s were the seed stage, 1904 was the Series A round. Lazenby took Dr. Pepper to the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, the St. Louis World's Fair. Over 20 million people attended. This was the era's equivalent of a Super Bowl ad, combined with a viral TikTok trend. Dr. Pepper was served to millions of international visitors. The exposure triggered the need for a new distribution mechanism. You can't ship liquid soda across the country efficiently in 1904. Glass bottles are heavy, and shipping water is financial suicide. The franchising franchise, printing money without capital. Dr. Pepper's growth engine was built on the franchise bottling system. This is arguably the most important financial decision in the company's history. Instead of building their own bottling plants, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1900s money, millions today, Lazenby sold the rights to bottle Dr. Pepper to local entrepreneurs. The unit economics of the franchise model. The parent company, Dr. Pepper, manufactures a concentrated essence or syrup. This is low weight, high value. They ship this to the bottler. The bottler buys the expensive equipment, rents the warehouse, buys the fleet of trucks, hires the drivers, and buys the sugar and water. They take on 90% of the capital risk. The revenue split is Dr. Pepper makes money up front on the concentrate sale. The bottler makes their money on the final sale to the retailer, keeping the margin between their production cost and the wholesale price. This allowed Dr. Pepper to scale nationally with very little deployed capital. They leveraged other people's money to build their infrastructure. By the 1920s and 30s, this network effect meant that Dr. Pepper was becoming available in wider circles, radiating out from Texas. Pricing power. In the early days, the price was fixed at 5 cents. The volume was the key. As inflation crept up over the decades, the franchise model protected Dr. Pepper corporate. If glass prices went up, the bottler's problem. If gas prices went up, the bottler's problem. Dr. Pepper simply adjusted the price of the concentrate to maintain their margins. The most critical moment for Dr. Pepper's market dominance was a legal battle, not a sales victory. For decades, Dr. Pepper was a regional player, often blocked by the exclusivity contracts of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. These contracts stated that a bottler could not bottle a competing product. If you bottled Coke, you couldn't bottle Pepsi. In 1963, a federal court ruling declared that Dr. Pepper was not a cola, it was a pepper soda. The financial implication of the ruling was worth billions. It meant that Dr. Pepper could legally be bottled by both Coca-Cola and Pepsi bottlers without violating their exclusivity agreements. In one town, the Coke bottler might distribute Dr. Pepper. In a next town, the Pepsi bottler might handle it. In a third, an independent bottler, like the fiercely loyal Dr. Pepper Bottling Company of Dublin, Texas, would handle it. This created a piggyback network. Dr. Pepper did not have to build a third redundant distribution network to compete with the red and blue systems. They simply rode on the existing rails. This gave Dr. Pepper access to 100% of the U.S. market without the capital expenditure required to reach it. It allowed them to capture the third spot in the soda wars, a position they have held firmly, often trading places with Diet Coke. While Coke and Pepsi fought a bloody war of attrition, spending billions to destroy each other, Dr. Pepper sat in the demilitarized zone collecting checks from both sides. Competitors like Mr. Pibb, Coke's clone, and Dr. Slice, Pepsi's clone, failed because the bottlers themselves often preferred the high-selling, established Dr. Pepper brand over the inferior internal clones forced upon them by their parent companies. To understand Dr. Pepper's revenue, one must look at the modern structure of Keurig Dr. Pepper, KDP, formed in 2018. The revenue streams are diversified, but rely on the same high-margin philosophy. Beverage concentrates, the golden goose. This segment generates revenue by selling concentrates and syrups to third-party bottlers. Margin, extremely high, often 60% operating margin. Mechanism, KDP ships a 50-gallon drum of concentrate. The bottler adds water, sweetener, and carbonation to make thousands of gallons of finished product. KDP gets paid regardless of whether the bottles sit on the shelf or sell immediately. Packaged beverages, direct store delivery. In some regions, KDP does own the bottling and distribution, about 40% of their volume. Margin is lower than concentrate, but captures the full value chain. They keep the profit from the manufacturing and the distribution. Revenue scale, this segment contributes significantly to the $14 billion annual revenue as they are selling full-priced finished goods, not just cheap syrup. Latin American beverages, a growing segment leveraging the Peñafiel mineral water brand and Dr. Pepper's increasing popularity in Mexico. Coffee systems, the Keurig component. Since the merger, roughly 30 to 40% of revenue comes from coffee. The razor blade model. KDP sells Keurig brewers, often at low margin or break even, to establish an installed base. They then sell K-Cup pods at incredibly high margins. Recurring revenue. A loyal Keurig user might spend $300 to $500 a year on pods. providing a steady, subscription-like revenue stream that soda alone cannot match. The Ally brand strategy is KDP's cross-sell engine. Because they control a massive distribution network, the third largest in the U.S., they can take small, growing brands like Vita Coco or historically Bai and push them through their pipeline. They charge these partner brands distribution fees, effectively renting out space on their trucks. Dr. Pepper has been bought and sold more times than perhaps any other major American brand. Each transaction marked a massive valuation spike. 1. The family exit. For decades, the company was publicly traded but independent. In the 1980s, the soda wars heated up. 2. The Forstmann-Little LBO, 1984. Private equity firm Forstmann-Little took Dr. Pepper private in a leveraged buyout valued at roughly $650 million.